Live from our studio audience, it's 5 More Minutes, Mom, with your hosts, Brielle and Guerlain, on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Oh, hi. I was like, am I still muted? No, I'm fine. Hey, how's
Hello.
everyone doing? Welcome to 5 More Minutes, Mom. I'm Guerlain.
And I'm Brielle.
And see, I'm never good at like the stuff that you do. So like down below, what do you say? Down below is all our socials. 5 More Minutes. No wait, that's 3 M's ETB on all social media platforms. You can follow us. Hit us up, whatnot, all that special social media talk and jazz to get you to hit that follow button, hit subscribe, and all that. Right?
Yeah,
Um,
you're doing a good job. It's a
yeah.
spiel. You'll get it.
And today, what I wanted us to discuss is how children's media approach difficult, hard to talk about topics to children, because sometimes parents things like death or um, racism or just injustice or anything that's like I don't know how to approach my kid about this. How media help with that, with introducing tough topics to children and um,
Right.
making it more digestible for them.
Yeah, and I think there's a bunch of different kind of examples of that all across the spectrum, from more like intimate, personal kind of topics to like larger global ideas. So I think there's definitely a lot that we can talk about in this episode.
Yeah, like for me, a lot of things that I struggle with, that couldn't necessarily things that I struggle with that I couldn't necessarily articulate to my parents or any adult around me, or conversations that I wasn't having with adults in my life. Um, I was getting those conversations through media.
Okay.
Um, like coming of age, I think is a really important thing
Hmm.
for kids, obviously, because you grow up, you know, things all things start off as candies and rainbows, puppies, kitties, like, oh, everything is all wonderful. And you hit that prime age of what? It's typically 12, 13, 14,
Hmm.
and things start changing. Like you start viewing the world a little differently, mood swings because of hormones and stuff like that. Um,
Right. Right. It's sort of like how when you're a little kid, they tell you that like Christopher Columbus came to America and the Pilgrims were friends with the Native Americans, and that's how Thanksgiving happened. And then as
right.
you get older, you start to learn more of the actual truth, and it's not so sugar coated because you're older and you're able to kind of handle that more.
Yeah. Yeah, you learned that a lot of shit was
Yeah.
bullshit. Like
Yeah.
what were these lies that we were told, we were fed?
Yeah.
Um but on my side, it was really those intrusive thoughts of who am I, or who am I becoming, or I'm feeling this way. Is it okay to feel this way? I'm feeling that way. Is it okay to feel that way? And Adventure Time, for those who don't know, Adventure Time is, I mean, if you don't know, then you literally have been
Yeah.
living under a rock. Ooh,
Yeah.
throwback. Adventure Time was like a really popular, still to this day, a popular Cartoon Network show that came out around 2011. Insanely successful, and it started off as just like this dumb, no plot, just vibes type of thing, and it gradually started to become more what's the word, more canonicalized.
Mhm.
There was a running narrative starting to develop.
Right.
um the main character Finn started off as this dumb little kid who just wanted to run out, have some fun, uh kiss princesses, right?
Yeah.
And as he got older, a lot of the little kid things that he used to do that was cute at first, it wasn't cute anymore because everything is cute when you're 10, but
Yeah.
once you're 14, 15, you start growing a little hair, and it's like, oh, that's it's like it's like I tell you, like once you start growing like some facial hair, I didn't start growing facial hair until I was 23. Like it happened from young.
I
Yeah.
I was growing facial hair before you, and that's on
um,
being Jewish.
I'm being Jewish. That's is
Yeah,
that a
we are
thing?
we are here a hirsute people. So yes, I had facial hair before you.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Um, but what I want to tackle with it is how, like, for example, with relationships,
Mhm.
how to approach it. I didn't necessarily have those the birds and the bees conversation with my parents. Oddly enough,
Uh-huh.
um, I pretty much just figured it out. Uh,
Yeah, me
you
too,
know.
kind of actually. I don't think my parents ever really gave me a birds and the bees talk because I
Mm,
don't think I ever really cared enough to ask them like where babies come from. And it's not that my parents were like, "Oh, she can't know about like sex or she can't know about that." Like they were always very open with me when I asked questions about other stuff. But yeah, I think I kind of just like figured it out or like I read it in oh, I wonder it's probably because I read a lot of fanfic, like, I figured it out, so yeah.
fan fiction helped you.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's helped me, to be quite honest. I feel like when you get your sex education from fanfic, it's either really good or really bad.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Depending on who's writing it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, with in the case of Finn,
Yes.
there was uh, there was like a big turning point in one of the relationships he was in.
Mhm,
Um, because he had a crush on Princess Bubblegum for a
mhm.
very long time, and that wasn't going anywhere.
Right.
So then he
'Cause
ended
she's
up.
with Marceline, right?
Oh no, that's not until later.
Yeah,
It
but
is
she
hinted
ends up with Marceline.
she ends up with Marceline. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, so he ends up with Flame Princess.
Mhm.
Not until the end, but he ends up dating Flame Princess.
Right.
And there was a their breakup was very messy because
Right.
Finn end up there was a situation where he was basically getting wet dreams, like to sum it up. Like it
Right.
was implied, it wasn't said, but he was basically
Well,
getting wet
yeah.
dreams of like Flame Princess being in arguments with Ice King, and like just something about it was turning him on. And this happened. He ended up having this. Yeah, it's weird. He ended up getting these dreams after like Ice King and Flame Princess had an altercation. He went to sleep that night, had a wet dream about it, and he was like, "I want more." So he ended up like manipulating the situation to where uh Flame Princess and Ice King will fight more. Like he will write
Okay.
letters to them, and in the letters, like he will write like send one to Ice King, send one to Flame Princess to piss them off to fight each other.
Right.
Specifically, in the letter he wrote for Flame Princess posing as Ice King, he put a lot of intimate details in there. Only things that he knew that he knew that she was insecure about.
Oh,
So
okay.
near the end of the episode, he reveals, he says, "Hey, listen," because like ends up being like a whole shit show.
I can
They end up like
imagine.
this, yeah, fire and ice. They end up like destroying a large part of the land, and he comes clean. And as he's like trying to apologize, Flame Princess is just she's not hearing any of it because she's just like, wow, you I trusted something, like I trusted you. I had faith in you. I trusted you. I gave you these details and you used it against me. You manipulated me. And something about that manipulation in relationships.
Hmm.
That's the thing that, you know, we're not necessarily told as children that, hey, if whoever like you're dating, and as a kid, like you shouldn't be in long-term relationships. You should just date, have fun, or don't date and just like figure it yourself out. But
Hmm.
in this case, I was dating and seeing like I was in Finn's perspective. I didn't understand why Flame Princess was so upset. Um,
Right.
it wasn't until at the time going through YouTube comments where like that scene was posted on YouTube or going to forums to understand why was Flame Princess so upset? Why didn't she just accept his apology? And even at the end of his apology, like when she just walks away or flies away, he goes, "I apologize." And I'm just thinking,
Right.
yeah, he apologized. Forgive him. Going through those forums and comments and hearing like seeing the conversation,
Right.
that helped me understand that, hey, if you do such and such, no matter how much that person loves you, manipulation is wrong
Yeah.
on all forms of that. And it really, and what I believe I was maybe 16, 17 around this time, around this episode
Okay.
aired. And it really made me reflect on my own actions that I was doing
Hmm.
at because like you're dumb, right? You're a dumb fucking teenager. You don't know shit
Yeah.
what you're doing. And who was gonna talk to me about like what I was doing, at that time. And like, hey, you shouldn't do that. That's manipulation. You're manipulating
Right.
someone into doing something that they shouldn't be doing or whatever. um
Hmm. Okay.
like stuff, yeah, stuff like that like hit a chord. And I
Right.
got that
So
through eventually, right?
like because of the way that Adventure Time handled that subject, it made you reflect inward on yourself and your relationships.
Yeah, and honestly, it wasn't perfect. Like it wasn't like, oh, I watched the episode of Adventure Time and now everything's
Yeah,
clean.
now
Like
you're
no,
fine. Yeah.
I still had to go through some shit, but it did
It
that
opened the
helped
conversation.
exactly of like,
Right.
hey,
Okay. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I honestly think it's great that shows that are more meant for children are handling these topics because you're right. Like why would we talk to a little kid about the idea of manipulation or coercion in a relationship? Like
Mm,
why would we think that that's something that they need to know? But I think that's under the broader idea of consent in all kinds of relationships, not just romantic, because I
right.
think children need to understand consent in all kinds of relationships and understand that they have a right to say no and say yes and about all different kinds of things. And so I think that's great that Adventure Time at this moment was like broaching that topic.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. No, I think honestly it's honestly amazing the way that children's television, things like that, are able to tackle such heavy topics and usually in a very, very elegant way. Like I can't help but think about like Sesame Street. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. You might have to like cut this part.
Mm.
Magenta, shut up. I will feed you when I feed you. Like you it is not time for your dinner. It is not time for your dinner. Enough. Every day you think that I was starving this cat. You would think because she whines like, oh my god, it's so funny. Oh my god, I can't with her. She's hilarious. Like I love her to death. You might think that I don't, but I love her to death. Like, oh my gosh. Okay, anyway. Hold on.
He's the
Yeah,
big
I'm definitely
baby.
gonna hold on.
Mm.
Right, yeah, like Sesame Street. Like I remember very distinctly, I remember when 9/11 happened. Sesame Street did an episode about a hurricane that destroyed Sesame Street, and like
Mm.
they used that as a way to, you know, kind of help children understand the tragedy and help children understand the situation without actively re-traumatizing them with 9/11,
Mm,
and Sesame Street has always been really good about dealing with those difficult topics because at the end of the day, Sesame Street's main goal was to help children learn and grow, and that includes emotionally.
right.
Like,
I
I mean, this was way before our time. Like, this was way before our time, but um my mom has told me that the episode where Mr. Hooper passes away and
right.
Big Bird has to deal with that as something that helped her understand and get over, not get over, but like understand and grieve properly the idea of death, and so Sesame Street's been in this game for a long time, and they've always kind of been really good about handling those really tough topics. I mean, they have characters in all different kinds of situations with all different kinds of families, and they always manage to do a great job being sensitive and gentle about these tough topics.
Yeah. So yeah, Sesame Street is like the OG in that,
Yeah.
and I
And
recall
well,
that mhm.
I was just going to say, and they have like psychologists on their payroll, so they like know how to breach these subjects and everything.
They were well prepared. Sesame Street.
Yeah.
To yeah.
Because I think they knew that, like, especially for like 9/11, that a lot of parents probably didn't know how to describe that to their children. Like, how do you explain to your 5-year-old what terrorism is, what this horrible tragedy is? And so to have Sesame Street, yes, they changed it by making it a hurricane, but to for Sesame Street to kind of help break it down so it was a little more digestible, I think is so great. Like, it sucks that they even had to do that at all, but, like,
Right.
it's great that they were there.
Mhm.
Because kids are not dumb. They understand when things happen. They understand when bad things happen, and they're able, I think, to handle tough topics. It's just how you explain them and how you talk about them.
Right. You think about those I guess yeah, those PSAs where
Yeah.
talking about fire drills, right?
Yeah.
How to act when there's a fire in the school.
Mhm.
Um what was it? Like I remember it was some domino. It was a not domino, like those dogs with this white and like the black
Dalmatians?
Dalmatians. There you go. Dominoes. Jesus Christ. Um but
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
listen, I
101
tried.
dominoes.
But that's what I was thinking about, really. But those that because what it was a Dalmatian dog that was a firefighter. Like that was their
Yeah,
mascot,
yeah.
right? And
Yeah, something like that.
they're always like, hey kids, if you ever find yourself on fire, you need to stop, drop, and roll. Like you gotta like they did it in a way where it's like we're not panicking, we're not freaking out. It's like, oh my god, if we're on fire, but they presented they presented it in a way like, hey, just so you know, like if you're ever on, I could imagine like a kid catching on fire, and they're not even like upset or anything. Just like, oh, I know what to do. I just need to stop, drop, and roll like the little doggies told me in
Yeah,
that
in
cartoon.
all honesty, like, I can't help but think about that, like, John Mulaney, like, quote where he's like, "I thought quicksand was gonna be a lot bigger of a deal as a child."
Uh,
Same with fires. Like, obviously, fires are a big deal and fires happen, but I have been, like, not on fire ever. I've never been
mm.
on fire, and I feel like they made us think as children that we were going to be on fire a lot, and I've
More
never been
often,
on
right?
fire. Hopefully, I
Right.
never will be. But, like, the way they talked about it, you'd think we were constantly gonna be on fire,
Like
you
just in
know?
case.
Yeah.
But or even when they approach topics like drug use.
Yes.
We had I forgot the name of the dinosaur, but it was like the yellow dino.
Ooh, I don't like from Barney?
No, 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 not for Barney.
Oh,
Like you don't remember? It was a yellow dinosaur. Had his sunglasses, a leather
no, I
jacket. He
No.
was I kid you not, this dinosaur was dressed like the Fonz for some odd
Okay.
reason. It was a yellow dino, and he was like he was all about, drug free. Don't smoke cigarettes or
Right.
any of that ish.
Right.
You you never saw the yellow dino before?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, that's crazy. All
No,
right.
no, honestly, I mean, it's possible, but I don't remember.
Okay. I'm surprised because I'm pretty sure that was like way before, not way before my time, but it was
Yeah.
introduced like around, like even
No,
though
I
we
believe
weren't in the
you, but
same
I don't
grade,
know
but
if maybe, like, my school district did something else, like,
oh,
because we had, like, drug prevention and, like, we had, like, DARE and, the week where everybody, like, dressed in red and stuff,
mm,
but, I don't remember that specifically, but also, like, my memory could be off, like, I don't know.
right, okay. Um, I just think it's hilarious because why dress like the Fonz? Like, hey
I
kids,
to make him
cool,
seem cool, I guess,
cooler,
but
I guess.
what kids would know the Fonz? Like,
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I know it's the Fonz now, but at the time,
yeah, so, like,
you
back
know,
then, did you I mean, like, I probably would've because, like, I watched a lot of old shows, but, like,
mm.
um, yeah, so yeah, those I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
That was fine.
I can
I mean,
hear
they're gonna hear
my
it.
cat can you hear the cat meowing?
Yeah, you can.
You can oh god.
Because you was talking about unfortunate events, right? That happen.
Okay, yeah, yeah, we talked about before what we wanted to bring up. So I wanted to bring up A Series of Unfortunate Events, which is a book
Mm,
series that I read as a kid. And what's interesting about that series is that I cannot read it now. As a kid, as like a preteen, I was able
mm,
to read it just fine. But now, I tried to read it like a few years ago. I couldn't get through it. It was just too heartbreaking. It was too depressing. And I think it's because as a kid, I think I was able to kind of gloss over how actually very sad it was,
mm,
because all I was able to kind of glean from it, which I think is the point, was that their family and they stayed together, and no matter what horrible, unfortunate events happened, they would stay together and they always had hope. And the books end not happily, but they do end with like an air of hope and, an air of like, now on to the next part of our lives.
mm,
And yeah, there's some uncertainty, but they're still together and they're older um, you know, and also as a child, I think I was very aware of the fact that like, well, it's an adventure. It's a series of books, it's like what's going to happen next? Like it didn't hit me how like actually sad the story and the idea is. Um, and so like now as an adult, like reading about these poor children who just keep getting passed from relative to relative to relative while running from this like homicidal maniac who wants to basically kill them for their money.
oh my
Like
god.
I can't get through it because as a kid, okay, so as a kid, the idea that adults are useless wasn't shocking to me
Mm,
because I was very lucky that all the adults in my life were very helpful and kind and they would protect me. But I feel like a lot of shows on television and a lot of, you know, media for kids is very much like adults are useless, all the kids are in charge, which is the point
yeah.
because it's a show for kids. So, of course, the kids would be in charge, like, of course, the parents aren't involved. So, I think as a kid, it didn't bother me so much that the Baudelaire siblings, were kind of on their own and they didn't have parents and like the adults in their lives couldn't do much. Um, but as an adult, I just like can't help but think like, oh my God, we're failing these children. Oh my gosh, like these poor kids. Um, but what's great about the series is I think it helped introduce children to the idea that life is not fair
Mm,
and that sometimes bad things happen even if you're a good person and that sometimes bad things will continue to happen and there's not really much that you can do about it except find people who are kind, find people who are helpful, find people who care about you and stick with those people like the Baudelaires did with with the siblings and like they did with all the various friends they made throughout the books, you know. Um So yeah, I honestly think that the series of Unfortunate Events books are really wonderful for children because they are so depressing, because they are kind of bleak, because it introduces those very unhappy ideas to children in a way that's kind of fun and exciting and easy to digest, you know?
Hmm.
Also, just like going off on series of unfortunate events, you would think that after like the third or fourth time, Count Olaf would just stop. He'd be like, "This isn't worth the time. This isn't worth the trouble." He probably loses more money pulling his ridiculous schemes and plans and moving constantly trying to find these kids. He probably loses more money that way. If he had just
Hmm.
like stayed in one place, he probably would be fine. Like, like, but he's chasing these kids for 13 fucking books.
But
Also, like, I'm sorry. Like, listen, I understand that the accident that killed their parents was an accident and like they didn't expect it. But how are you gonna be that fucking rich and not have a will? Like, how are you gonna be that rich and like not have contingency plans? Like, how and also, like okay, maybe I'm thinking about this because, like, whatever, but, like, if I had children dropped on my doorstep, I would understand that, like, let's say their, like, fortune would only be available to them when they turned 18, like, that I understand, but you're gonna look at me in the eyes and tell me that there wasn't, like, a stipend?
hmm.
Like, if Count Olaf happened to be, like, a nice guy, he's still getting 3 kids dropped off on his doorstep out of nowhere, and you're telling me that the Baudelaire parents were like, "Yeah, it's fine. Whoever we, pawn these kids off to, they'll be able to pay for it." Like, you couldn't have set aside some of your money to help make sure your kids can actually, like, eat? Because they didn't know. Because, like, for all they knew, even if Count Olaf was nice, what if he was, like, destitute? Like, which he kinda was, like, that's the point. You know, yeah, it's just
I mean, you can have
also,
sound
why didn't
logic.
Lemony Snicket take the kids? Because Lemony Snicket is a character within those books,
Mm,
because he writes the books, like, telling the story of the Baudelaire children, and he writes the books, and we know for a fact that he was in love with their mother, and so, like, obviously the mother knew him, and obviously, like, the mother, like, cared about him in some capacity, and he was a nice guy and he wrote books for a living, so he obviously like wasn't, like, on the streets. Why couldn't the Baudelaires go with him?
mm.
Like, why was Count Olaf like the first person to send those kids to? I To be fair, I haven't read the books in a very long time, so I don't know if this is explained, because I know that there were a bunch of fires, and I know it wasn't just the Baudelaires that were killed. I know it was other people too. But
Mm.
even so, like, come on. The Baudelaires did not protect their children the way that they should have, especially for people who are obscenely wealthy, as they apparently are, and for people who are in a secret society. Like, if you're in a secret society, even if it's like a good secret society, like, you're not going to have precautions. Like, you're not going to, you know, think maybe just in case I should
Right.
make sure my children are okay because I'm in a secret society, so, like, governments or police can't get involved if anything happens, like
I mean, it's not completely unheard of rich people not having a will, because that's a real thing that actually
I
happens.
know, which it doesn't make any sense because, like,
Yeah,
you
it's
have all
wild.
that money, but yeah, so but, like, that's what I mean, like, an adult thinks about these things and a kid doesn't. A kid just reads it for the tragedy that, it can help them compartmentalize, in an
Hmm.
easy kind of way. Yeah.
Damn, that was like a whole rabbit hole down. How you
Yeah.
feel about
That's why I can't read these books anymore. I get too angry because I'm an adult now and I see the injustice.
Right.
And, whereas when I was a kid, like, obviously as a kid I knew that it wasn't fair, but I was like more interested in like seeing how the Baudelaire children like defeated Count Olaf, and I was more interested in like discovering the mystery than I was in like the truth of the situation?
Mm.
Um yeah. I feel like this has just become like a therapy session. Um,
I mean, sound logic always goes out the window when it comes to storytelling
yeah, I
because you
mean,
need the drama. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I think that, you know, eh, that children's media really does something wonderful for those really hard topics. You know, I haven't really watched most modern children's television shows, but I like my sister like babysits and she works in preschool, and she was telling me about like Daniel Tiger, which is like a Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood show,
Okay.
and they had an episode like all about allergies, and they had an episode about how parents come back, like when they go to the store, don't worry, they'll come back. So I think that even now, children's shows are still doing their due diligence in helping children deal with their emotions and deal with like new concepts. And I think that's really wonderful because, you know, I think it's important that we talk to children about difficult things like death, like sickness, like fear, like, all those bad emotions like anger and stuff. But I think that there's definitely a way to do it. There is a gentle way to do that for children. And so I think that it's great that that children shows still do that.
I,
She wants more food. She wants more food. Um Yeah, but I just think it's wonderful that, that these shows are still doing such a great job at introducing these more difficult topics for children because, for some kids, unfortunately, they don't live in a world where they have their parents or, trusted family members or people to explain these concepts to them. Sometimes all they have is Sesame Street. Sometimes all they have is Adventure Time.
yeah. Or
Yeah.
even like you see television dads and people say, "Oh, that was my dad." Like Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince, or
Yes, 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 yes.
I put I don't recall the father's name, but from Full House. What was it, Danny
Oh,
something?
Danny. Yeah, Danny Tanner.
Mm,
Yeah, oh,
yeah,
absolutely. People consider him like their dad, because he was so kind and so understanding and, yeah, sometimes those episodes were a little like like a little like sickly sweet with how
yeah,
they dealt with problems, but they did talk about them. They talked about things that affected families all across the world, and I think the way that they handled it was honestly, pretty good in the long run. Yeah.
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 Pretty much. And just a final note.
Mhm.
I think it's interesting uh the progression of with Adventure Time. There was a lot of introspective episodes, like a
Right.
lot, surprisingly. And like there was one episode where Finn he astral projected,
Oh,
and
cool.
he would just went like during the astral projection, he just went through a bunch of scenarios that made him question like what is the point of living? What is the point of life?
Mhm.
You know, and he sort of gets an answer from the god of the series,
Mhm.
and he was asking the god is named Glob, Grob, and Gob, and he has like four of them in one body, and he asks them, it's like, you know, your creations, like how what do you do about that? Like, how do you show that you actually care for what you created? And
Mhm.
their response, because the whole scenario was like there was a meteor coming towards a planet that they created,
Mhm.
and when Finn's asked that, it's like, how do you show your love and appreciation? They sacrificed themselves. Like that was the answer. They sacrificed themselves. They threw themselves at the meteor
Oh my
so it
gosh.
doesn't destroy the planet. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just like, so the progression from there, like episodes like that. There's a lot of episodes like that of Adventure Time, to
Yeah.
something more recent like BoJack Horseman, where it's just
Oh,
all
yeah, I
like,
mean, that's not a kids show. That is
right,
absolutely not a kids show.
but the progression, because people who are kids watching Adventure Time are now
Right.
young adults watching BoJack Horseman, and that's really popular because of how real it is, how
Right.
deep, you know, it gets into certain topics. It doesn't cut corners whatsoever. Like it
Yeah.
just throws the shit at you. And we got a taste of that with shows like Adventure Time and other shows around that time too. And now we're getting it fully with BoJack Horseman. I think I don't think it's coincidence why like shows like that are so popular. And when people revere shows like that, those are the episodes they talk about where it's just the character or characters reflecting on themselves and um, their lives and different
Right.
scenarios, reflecting on relationships. It's because who was having who was having that conversation with us?
Mhm.
If we couldn't talk to our parents, if we couldn't talk to an
Yeah.
adult, we were literally talking amongst ourselves, and that's not the best thing to get advice from another kid who's also going through it. Because
Yeah.
and sometimes it does help, but we we do need a more a perspective that comes from years of experience and wisdom. You know,
Right.
I just think like that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
That
I
progression.
yeah, I mean, you definitely can make the connection between, like, you know, the fact that, I'm okay, like, I was okay reading Series of Unfortunate Events. Now as an adult, I'm okay and I can handle watching shows that are a little more morbid. Or I can
Right.
handle, like, books that make me cry now because I learned how to handle those emotions when I was a child. you know
Right.
um so yeah, I think it's honestly, I think it's good that TV shows and movies and books for children do handle those topics because it helps us learn how to deal with them when they're a little bit bigger and more encompassing when we're older.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, this was a very interesting episode. Yeah,
Mm.
it was like a
Interesting
little
indeed.
mini therapy session.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, anything else you want to talk about?
Nah, um, it's just it's just really interesting. Like
Yeah.
those deep thoughts and
Yeah,
tough
I mean, at the end of
conversations.
the day, it's catharsis. It's literally, the idea of providing a healthy and safe way for us to work through, hard situations or difficult emotions. And I think it's so wonderful that we allow children to do this. And that's why I think this whole modern idea of, like, we have to protect the children, like, is such bullshit, because we're not protecting them from anything. If anything, we're making it worse for them to
Yeah,
be able to, like, regulate their emotions and understand the world as they get older. Like, I'm not saying that children should be exposed to, like, everything, but
right.
they need to understand the world that they're living in, and there are ways to do it in a child-friendly way.
Yeah,
Because otherwise they're just gonna wake up one day as an adult and not know how to control their emotions and how to express their emotions and how to deal with stuff. It's so
I mean,
important.
we are witnessing it now.
Yes,
If you think about it,
absolutely.
like a lot of and I'm speaking more on the man side. The way men handle rejection is because
Mhm.
those conversations weren't being had, and
Right.
now in real time, we're seeing what happens when the wrong messenger is talking to children. I'm talking about, fucking Andrew Tate.
Yeah,
He's
well,
talking, but who is his audience?
yeah,
Young
no, I
men, like
know. It's
in
it's
late,
vulnerable populations. It's
exactly.
vulnerable people. Yeah, because
That
they don't have.
they're getting the wrong message.
Yeah, and they don't have something else to, like, watch instead, or someone else to talk to instead. And so that's
Exactly.
why I think it's so important that these children's shows do exist and we can kind of point their faces towards them if the people in their lives aren't doing their jobs to kind of, explain how things should be.
Yeah, it's really important. And people, I don't know for sure, but it feels like a lot of people undermine how important it is.
Mhm.
But
Oh,
it's really
absolutely.
important. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
people have always kind of scoffed at children's media as just being dumb kids cartoons when it's so much
Right.
more. When
Yeah.
it really is responsible for helping children grow into the people that they become?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what this whole podcast is about, how like that
Yeah.
media helps shape us. right?
Yeah, and that's why I think it's such a valid topic because
Yeah,
it is so important in so many like ways that you don't even think about, you know?
yeah. All right, take us home.
I think that's good. All right, everyone. At the bottom of the screen, you will find the roller with all of our social media handles and information. Please give us a like. Please give us a follow. Leave a comment on this video with with your opinions. What episode of a TV show helped you deal with something hard? How did you work through an emotion with the help of like Sesame Street or Barney or something? Let us know. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you so
sure,
much for watching.
and I'm sure everyone has a story that
Um,
can be shared and everyone else could learn from. It'll be an interesting
Absolutely.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
All
right. Till
right.
next
Thanks,
time.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.